Chocolate Masters Hangout, where today we'll be talking about cold chocolate. My name is Alysha Kropf from Ecole Chocolat, and I'm so happy today that we have with us Chef Dickey from Zocalisa Chocolates and Gelato in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And we also have Richard Tango-Lowy from Dancing Lion Chocolate in Manchester, New Hampshire. So as I said, we're talking about cold chocolate. It's summertime in many parts of the world, and it's a perfect time of year for chocolatiers to get their creative juices flowing with treats to cool us down. Ice cream, gelato, sorbet, there's so many ways for us to enjoy our chocolate cold. And we're so lucky because we have Jeff and Richard who are going to be talking to us today and sharing their expertise. So let's start our discussion. Jeff, we're going to start with you. And for the people who may be watching at home that may not know these distinctions, could you just tell us a bit about the differences between ice cream, gelato, and sorbet?
Sure thing. Let's start with the similarities. Ice cream, gelato, and sorbet are all partially frozen mixtures of water, sweeteners, flavorings, and other stuff. I say partially frozen because if it was completely frozen, it'd be hard, rock hard like ice. The other stuff is what differentiates the products. Now, ice cream and gelato both contain dairy, while sorbet or sorbetto does not. By law, American ice cream must contain at least 10% butterfat. Many premium ice creams contain more, even up to 16%. A little bit more than that, it would affect the structure. Gelato typically has about half that fat, between 4 and 6%. Another difference between ice cream and gelato is overrun, or the amount of air that's incorporated into the mixture when it's freezing. An ice cream can actually contain 50 to 100% air. So when they create the ice cream, air naturally is incorporated into the mix through interaction with the various ingredients. But gelato, again, has about half that. Of course, at our shop, we like to say half the fat and twice the flavor. Gelato is also softer. It's served slightly warmer, so it's not scooped like a hard ball. It's usually used a paddle. It's a little bit softer, a little bit warmer. So the difference in the taste is when it hits your tongue, there's not as much fat to melt, and it's a little bit warmer, so your flavor hits you faster. It's a sudden burst of flavor. Ice cream and gelato also contain milk solids, emulsifiers, and stabilizers. A sorbet is simply water, sweeteners, and flavorings. It's usually fruit, although I have made a dark chocolate sorbet. It was really good, and the dairy-free people were very happy to see it. Although stabilizer is also added to prevent rapid recrystallization. So all these products can be produced on the same machine in pretty much the same way if you're able to control the speed of the beater bar. If you can slow the beater bar down on a small machine, that puts less air into the system, and then you can have a little bit denser, and this would control the amount of the overrun. So at our shop, Zocalisa, we make gelato and sorbetto. The sorbetto is actually Italian for sorbet. There's probably some argument among linguists of who did it first, but I believe the Italians came up with sorbetto, and then the French made it a sorbet. But we decided to make gelato along with our chocolates, and we used a process that we actually call capricious serendipity, or random fortune. When we opened our chocolate shop, we were looking for space in Baton Rouge, and we looked downtown, we looked at near the campus, we looked at some of the central areas, and we really couldn't find any commercial space that was affordable, that had a kitchen built out, and a little bit of retail. It was really problematic for us, so we decided to, we were looking around, and one day after lunch we walked by a shop, and there used to be an ice cream shop, and had a sign up, and the guy said, "Thanks for 10 great years, I'm done. You want my business, give me a call." So we did, and we got the lease, we got the equipment, and we set out to learn how to make gelato with pretty much the same level of passion and quality that we put into our chocolates. The process can be complicated to make these products, but really if you write it all out, you can follow a recipe. You can make a good gelato or a good ice cream. You don't have to have a $30,000 machine that we did. You can do it smaller. You can do something like a Cuisinart. But both gelato and sorbetto both start off with a base. For gelato, we make a base of milk, cream, sweeteners, emulsifiers, and stabilizers. And then for our shop, we actually pasteurize this mix in a 4-gallon tabletop pasteurizer. It's made by a company called Micro Dairy Designs in Maryland. This was certified by our Board of Health as reaching the pasteurization. It's got a chart. It records everything. So that works for us. After pasteurization, we let the base cure in the refrigerator for about 24 hours. And this helps to build the structure of the gelato. It makes it a little more complex, a little bit denser if you let this cure. It's something to do with the milk proteins. For production, we mix base with the flavoring. We need to adjust the sweetness depending on the type of flavor we use, and then we freeze it in a batch freezer. After the batch freezer, the gelato is hardened in a blast freezer. This pulls it down to below zero in a couple minutes. It's a really a large freezer. It circulates air and it freezes it really quick. And this will harden it. And the faster you can chill a gelato or an ice cream or a sorbet, the smaller the ice crystals. It makes a smoother feel, and it'll give you a little bit longer shelf life.
Right.
And then after that, we store it in our walk-in freezer.
Right.
So,
and what flavors do you make currently that include chocolate? And are there any specific challenges about making a chocolate product?
we currently have 5 flavors. We make a dark chocolate gelato, a milk chocolate hazelnut, a favorite for people. I made that for my daughter. She's a Nutella nut, so we made a milk chocolate. You also do a stracciatella and a peanut butter stracciatella.
And what is stracciatella?
Stracciatella is actually it's an Italian word meaning little shreds or little rags. It's little tiny pieces of chocolate. So while the gelato is freezing, we pour in a melted chocolate. I used about 500 grams to a 4-liter pan. And right at the end of it, it forms little bitty pieces of chocolate. It's like chocolate chips, but it's smaller. So the wonders of eating a stracciatella is when you eat the gelato, it first melts. You get that sweet cream gelato taste or the peanut butter, and then that dark bittersweet chocolate kicks in, and it melts next. So you get an extended flavor profile.
Oh, that sounds delicious. What is your most popular gelato flavor? And you can tell us even if it's not chocolate.
It depends on the season. In the fall, we had a pumpkin pie and apple pie that were real popular when we bring them out. We bring out a new flavor. It's the favorite for about a week, and then they go back to the standards. But our dark chocolate has been our favorite, then stracciatella, and the raspberry sorbetto is our third favorite, in time.
Okay. And do you have any new chocolate-based flavors that are in the works?
Right now, we're working on a Mexican chocolate, something with chili pepper and a little bit of spice. I think it's a real flavor treat when you bring 2 opposing flavors together. The coolness of the gelato, and then with the pepper, the slow warming, not a scorching heat, but a slow warming from the pepper, and that'll be really good. Also, there's we're working on something like a moon pie. Now, a moon pie is a southern delicacy with graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate. It's kind of like a s'more, but inside out with the chocolate on the outside. So we're trying to find a way to encapsulate the graham cracker to keep it from getting soggy. We'll have a marshmallow cream in there.
That also sounds delicious. I think I'll need to come down to Baton Rouge and give that a try.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you found about making gelato?
Some of the biggest challenges is keeping the structure and consistency right when we make a new flavor, because the structure and consistency of gelato really depends on the milk solids and the various sweeteners, and so and those have to be in balance to get a proper mouthfeel, but texture, consistency, and the sweeteners affect how fast it melts and the consistency. You have too much sugar in a mix or too many solids, and it'll be kind of soupy at a typical serving temperature. If you don't have enough, it's rock hard. So a real challenge is trying to balance those out. If you use a chocolate, it's also adding milk solids and butter fat or cocoa fat to the mixture, and that changes it. So we had to do a lot of adjustments to get the right consistency using a chocolate. And if you change a chocolate, you'd have to readjust your formula. Of course, the best part of owning a chocolate shop and a gelato shop is you get to eat all your mistakes.
That's true. That is definitely a good perk that you have.
Another challenge is balancing production with sales. Since we're a new shop, we have no sales record. We don't know how much to make, so we want to make enough to always be in stock. But I don't want to make too much and have to eat it all or throw it out. So that's been a real challenge. Another problem is we have to trade off gelato production with chocolate production, a small kitchen area. And when we pasteurize our base, we're actually heating up the base. We make our own base with milk and sugar and cream. and it puts a lot of moisture in the air. Of course, the two enemies of good chocolate are heat and humidity, and for us to be heating up a mix in the shop and putting the humidity in the air is a real challenge. So we have to balance it out. We can't do both at the same time. Plus, we're a small shop, and we kind of do everything, so you can only do one thing at a time. So that's been another challenge, is trading off the gelato production with the chocolate production.
Right. And so you've talked a little bit about sort of pasteurization, and so we all know that gelato needs to be kept cold, of course, but what are some other specific things you need to keep in mind in terms of making and storing gelato from a food safety perspective?
Well, for product quality, we always use the very best ingredients, and you want to process it as quick as possible. We make our chocolate gelato. We use a couverture quality chocolate in our gelato, and it makes a difference. When people taste it, they can tell a difference between anybody else's gelato in town because we use such a good quality. And then for a strawberry gelato, we use fresh strawberries, we puree it, and we use that immediately. So you really want to use the very best and process it really quickly. For food safety, like any food product, it's clean, sanitize, avoid cross-contamination. There has been recently a problematic bacterium that can survive freezing. And so we take measures to avoid introduction, clean it, and sanitize everything between every single batch. You really want to maintain a really clean environment. And we make a real small batch of gelato, usually no more than a 5-liter pan of gelato each time. So we're serving it all out. Everything's consumed or disposed of within 2 weeks, so that limits the time that something can get established and contaminated.
Right. Excellent. So, Rich, let's bring you into the discussion. So we've heard a bit about the story behind how Jeff came to make gelato at Zocalisa, and how did you decide to make ice cream at Dancing Lion?
There are a few different things that came into us making ice cream. We're a chocolate shop. We use some beautiful, very rare chocolate. That's what we specialize in. Last year at home, I started playing with making ice cream, and I enjoyed doing it. And I thought, well, things can always be a little quieter during the summer. They're busy enough, but still, it gives us something to round out our chocolates. We still sell a lot of bonbons, but it gives us something else. Second, we're in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's not the real foodie capital of the world, but our truffles and bonbons are very unusual and very rare. We make a batch one time. We'll make 20 to 200 of a piece and then move on to something else with some really unusual chocolate. And we needed something to help balance making a lot of the locals feel a bit more comfortable coming in. And so ice cream, doing beautiful ice cream worked, and that actually has been our approach, and it's been very effective. But we chose to take the same approach to ice cream that we take to bonbons. We make single batches and then move on. So we make typically 3 liters of a flavor, and then we do something else next.
Could you tell us a bit about how you make your ice cream in terms of recipe development and the equipment, etc.?
I can. We make all of our ice cream on a $70 Cuisinart home ice cream machine with a freezer that we have at the shop. So we can do about 3 liters at a time. The interesting part to me of ice cream is the science of it. As Jeff touched on, crystallization is everything. Mm-hmm. And controlling crystallization when you don't have real equipment is a little tricky. So I really looked at what's the structure of ice cream. It's technically a foam embedded in emulsion, and I looked at from a molecular standpoint, what does that actually look like, and what can we do to manage the crystallization? And we actually work with a material scientist out of Dartmouth College, when we have questions sometimes as well. And what I found is there are quite a few techniques that we can use to make a really silky, beautiful ice cream that will have a long shelf life. Granted, they almost always sell within 3 days, but not crystallize. And that was very important to us. The basic technique is we make our own base as well. And we do start with local ingredients. We have a local farm that provides our milk and our cream and our eggs. And from there on, the chemistry is really, I can control crystallization with sugar, salt, and alcohol. And we balance those depending on the flavor we're working with to get the crystallization we want. And also, as Jeff mentions, it changes with the chocolate. And since we have lots of different, maybe 25 different kinds of couverture chocolate, some of them very rare and beautiful, with different levels of cocoa butter and different levels of solids, we have to play with that. So we keep a lot of notebook. Every time we make a recipe, we keep notes on what we're doing to it. If we adjust the cocoa butter, we know we have to adjust something else to counterbalance it. So that's really our approach to ice cream.
Right. And so you touched on, there's both eggs and milk in ice cream. So what do you have to be conscious of from a food safety perspective when you're making and selling ice cream in your shop?
We pasteurize. We pasteurize by hand with a thermometer in a small pot, but we still pasteurize. That's really critical.
Right.
And for storing, same thing. I mean, everything comes in fresh. We're using fresh ingredients for everything. It goes frozen immediately. If you're in a chocolate shop, you already know that hygiene is everything. So everything is sanitized. For us constantly, because we do in our shop, we make savory food. We bake. We make bonbons and chocolates and bars and now ice cream. So we're doing all this kind of all at the same time. Frequently, we're doing 2 or 3 at a time. So making sure between tasks everything is completely sanitized is critical to us.
Right. Right. And what have been some of your most popular chocolate ice cream flavors?
They surprise me sometimes. The most recent was the fresh blood orange and matcha tea swirl.
Whoa, that sounds delicious.
Beautiful. I think our most popular is we have a chocolate, our Tango chocolate, which is primarily a Madagascar, Zambrano Valley. It's intensely cherry and very beautiful. Very silky. It's high in cocoa butter. And we did that with a cherry blossom infused salt from Osaka, Japan. And that was just spectacular. I have the luxury of, if I make a chocolate with a beautiful Peruvian pura, I don't have to add anything else. It's its own thing. And if I want that kind of big round fruit you get from a pura, that kind of yellow fruitiness that comes in late, we can use pura and do that. Ice cream's kind of neat because it does have the high fat content and the flavor comes in later. We can play with aromatics. So you're going to get the creaminess first, then the chocolate's going to develop, and then say I do something like a fresh lemon tarragon with Ecuador cacao nibs. The tarragon's going to unfold, and then finally you're going to get the nibs, and we can play with that. And then we use alcohol to control crystallization, but also for flavor. Right. So we pick what alcohol is going in because that's going to also bring up flavor up front, but it's going to be what remains in the back of your throat when everything's said and done. So right now I've got a, we just have hardening. We have an Iranian rose blossom with fresh local honey and pistachios and a beautiful 35% white chocolate. And it's neat because I just tasted it's not hardened yet. When I tasted it, though, it tastes like the custard. We use a very high custard formula because Jeff touched on emulsions and stabilization. Because we're using our eggs for the emulsions and stabilization. The yolks provide the lecithin for the emulsions. The whites provide the stabilization.
Right.
And actually use that so we don't have to introduce stabilizers and things. It means a lot of eggs. But you get that custard up front, and then a little bit of the sweetness of the honey, and the rose doesn't come until late, and it's very delicate and very beautiful, and it just fills your mouth. And I love time release. That's what we do with our bonbons, and I just love. I didn't know I could do that with ice cream, and I'm just thoroughly loving doing it.
Right. Oh, that must be such an amazing flavor experience.
Well, the customers seem pretty good with it. We've just killed off our a really lovely Chinese white tea that was infused with safflower blossoms and bits of strawberry, and I did that with a Nicaraguan 80%. It's very aromatic, very light-bodied, very very aromatic chocolate. We did that with chips, and it was just really unusual because again, you didn't get the aromatics of the tea until late. And so you get the custard and then that particular chocolate, and then the tea would kind of unfold. And I love watching customers when they eat it because it surprises them. They know what to expect, and then what they get is different.
And I saw in your social media feed that you made a banana flambe ice cream banana split with chocolate sauce, and I think we would all like to hear more about that.
And I think there's a picture of it that we have up that can be brought up too. The banana flambe ice cream was fresh bananas, because we don't use all of our bananas for banana splits, then they have to be used for something. And so I cooked them very slowly in brown sugar to just a deep banana caramel, and brought in some rum and flambéed it, and a little vanilla, and then I used that to make the ice cream. And I did that ice cream with our Guatemalan, which is an amazing, our Ecole chocolate. It's two different farms in Guatemala. We get about 50 kilos a year. And just got this incredibly complex layered flavor. And to do that with the banana was just fantastic. And our banana split, the one that we had the picture of, is actually a cacao pod bowl that we did in 3D, the top and the bottom. It's made with our Ecole Guatemalan chocolate. We did the banana, 2 scoops of ice cream, our own house-made dark chocolate and white chocolate sauces. And then Ecuador cacao nibs, some pistachios, fresh whipped cream, a little bit of gold dust, and we usually top it with a Peruvian square. But in this case, we actually put the top half of the cacao pod shell. And those banana splits they're pretty popular. People actually do finish them, usually 2 people at a time.
Wow. Are you going to be continuing to offer those throughout the summer, or are they also kind of
the banana splits, we've been doing sundaes, Zen brownie sundaes, which is our brownie recipe. Sundays, we've been playing with making ice cream sodas. We make our version of an egg cream, and we'll put a scoop of whatever people want into it. So ice cream sodas, and people just seem open to playing. They'll do something crazy like a strawberry sage ice cream soda and love it, and it's fun. People are having a really good time.
Yeah, it seems like there's also kind of a bit of an event element that goes into the ice cream thing as well. I've seen other chocolatiers that are having ice cream socials on the weekends, and they're making ice cream sandwiches with macaron cookies instead of sort of the more traditional cookie that you might use. So that part of it is really fun for customers, I think.
It is, but what I love for us is most of them come and they just get ice cream, and I think because we post on our website every day what the flavors are, and they change pretty much every day. It's a bit of an event of what's coming up next.
Right.
What's coming up next.
Yeah. And speaking of what's coming up next, do you have any other cold chocolate products that are in the works?
I do.
Oh.
We've been experimenting with making cacao, in this case Madagascar cacao nib root beer. And
wow.
I want to do a root beer float with cacao nib root beer. So we'll see how that works. I've got a couple more ingredients to get, and we'll start working on that. We've been making some other sodas on our own, make handmade vanilla cream sodas and things, but the root beer float that's been high on my list. It's something I really want to nail.
Right.
And that's coming down. And other than that, we'll see. I never know. We kind of go from day to day.
That's true. I think there's always things percolating at Dancing Lion, aren't there?
Well, it's all about what the new chocolate is, and what inspires us at the markets and whatever else. There is sort of there's some challenges to making recipes one time, like with our bonbons, but there's also a certain freedom to it.
Right. And so, Jeff, do you have any advice that you would give to anyone that's just thinking about starting out, kind of incorporating gelato into their business?
I would start small. I think Richard's got the right idea with starting a small setup and testing it. We went big because it was what is available. It was kind of difficult to. I felt obliged to fill all 16 bins in my case, and then ended up throwing out or eating a lot of it. So really start small, but always use the very best chocolates. I like what Richard's doing with the different kinds of chocolates.
Right.
Go crazy with the savories. Anybody can get vanilla ice cream with a bit of chocolate in it, but I think the savories really make a difference. I would be bold. Take it to the streets. Take it to where people are. Don't expect people to come by to look you up to find your favorite chocolate or gelato or ice cream. I think it's real important to take it out. There's another vendor in town who has a cart. He has just a cart. He doesn't have a brick, and so he's at all the small events. And I think that's a really good way to do it. But and also we take suggestions from our customers what they want to try. So
right.
I've never wanted to try anything really sweet. But my son, who does a lot of the gelato productions, introduced a couple of really sweet. More sweet than a gelato should be, I think, but kids love it, and so that works for me. So that's
have you had any customer suggestions that you were completely surprised by?
Not really. Most of them are pretty traditional, and they say the snickerdoodle with the cinnamon. We did a banana cream for a while, so
right.
Most of them, anything they've come up with, we've been willing to try. We did Amarena cherry for a while, and those are really good. So I think we like to surprise our customers and put something new in the case. And it's good to always put something new because they'll always try something different. Maybe just once, but they will try it. The adventurous ones will try it. So we want to get the word out that we have something new and different, and something to set us apart from the froyos. There's frozen yogurts everywhere. There's most towns have a big, the hard ice cream, hand scooped, one of the big chains, and by using the really, making small batches, unique flavors, and really good ice cream or gelato, you're going to distinguish yourself from the competition or for other people out there.
Right.
So,
right.
And then so that's the main thing I would do is I would try to start small and introduce it, and of course everybody at work and all my friends have been a great test kitchen for me, so I bring it out to them and get lots of feedback and comments on that.
That's great. You have your own market research right there.
Yep, right here.
And Rich, do you have any advice for people just starting out thinking about making ice cream?
I do. Great ingredients make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
They really make a big difference. And it's amazing what you can do by whipping up fresh local cream and putting it on top of a sundae. It changes everything.
Right.
The second, I think, is really understand your recipe. Making your own base is a big deal. A lot of even better places will buy their base, the main kind of component, and add flavors to it. But making your own base is a big deal. It's what differentiates you, and really understanding ice creams, gelatos, all these frozen desserts are chemically complicated beasties. They really interplay. Ice cream's interesting. Every part of it means something and has an impact. You change the number of egg yolks, you're changing the emulsion. You change the whites, you change the stabilization. You add salt, you're adding saltiness. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'll pick the salt I want to use. We did a Cypress black salt with a particular ice cream because I didn't want something quite as salty, and I wanted that flavor profile on your tongue. But it also helps with crystallization. Every piece matters, and you can't just wildly change stuff. So you asked if customers ask Jeff. We had some customers. We have a lot of, interestingly, we have a lot of Russian customers, and they like things a little bit less sweet in general. So I'd been playing with. We did our lemon tarragon, which I used a very tart lemon syrup we had made to cut some of the sweetness from the sugar. But I wanted a really magnificent, extremely dark chocolate ice cream that wasn't too sweet, which is hard because you're introducing a lot of cocoa butter and you're trying to minimize the sugar without entirely destroying the structure of your ice cream.
Right.
And so I actually went with a really lovely 100% Ecuador from Picari out in Ecuador. And we have about 3 different 100% chocolates in the shop, and we have them because they're all beautiful and you can eat them straight. But this was nice because it cut the sweetness down. And in our bonbons and savory dishes, we'll often use 100% to cut the sweetness. It cut the sweetness of the chocolate, and then we did 70% Ecuador chocolate chips. And it's an earthy chocolate, and it gave you an incredible depth, and it really removed a lot of the perception of sweetness. And a little bit of salt helped cut that. And then bring the alcohol up a little higher so we could cut the sugar down a little bit more. Got that. So we got a beautiful crystallization. We saw a really nice texture. We had a very dark chocolate. And that was about my 3rd iteration of working on dark chocolate and trying to get it where I wanted it. And we'll keep playing along those lines. But really dark chocolate is really, really hard because everything about chocolate is bizarre, as we all know in this industry. Yeah. And, Valrhona developed a chocolate just for ice cream with low cocoa butter so they could get the chocolate flavor. But I love cocoa butter. So we had to develop techniques to actually get different techniques for getting the cocoa butter into the ice cream without having it fragment or affect the texture. So I spent a year working on that. And so experiment, but don't experiment wildly. Get a good recipe, really understand your recipe, and then work from there.
Right. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I know I, for one, learned a lot about gelato and ice cream, and thanks to both of you, I am now craving some gelato or ice cream, so maybe I will go and have some this afternoon. So I just want to close with a thank you to Jeff Dickey from Zocalisa Chocolates and Gelato and Richard Tango-Lowy from Dancing Lion Chocolates. And if anyone that's missed our live broadcast, we'll be posting the video on our website, www.ecolechocolat.com, shortly. And I just wanted to thank all of you for watching.
Thank you so much, Alysha, and it was a pleasure, Jeff.
My pleasure, too. Glad to meet you, and it's great to talk about gelato. I could talk about it all day.
Thank you, everyone.